वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा।
Illustration 3 and 4. Given here are two horoscopes, one of the father and other of the son. Now this is a very interesting study you can do in USA and produce a major research if you possibly get the correct horoscope. Now you have had some fabulously rich persons who are quoted all over the world, whose names are mentioned. Because in USA you talk in terms of billions, right? And perhaps also trillions, I don't know. I have heard the billionaire, I have not heard the word trillionaire, but I don't know if there are such persons also. Is there an expression trillionaire? No. Billion, trillion, the billionaire, why not trillionaire? Anyway. Huh? Pardon?
In lira, not in dollars.
In lira, not dollar. Achha, anyway. Now, you see, I don't know the background of Clinton much, but Clinton obviously did not come from a very rich, great background, as far as we know, right? His father died before his birth, his mother, you know, wants today, had to go and study somewhere, but he rose. Now suppose you get the horoscope of Clinton's daughter, very correctly. You contrast and you see, one man has struggled high to build up. From almost zero, as we say in India, he becomes a hero. Right? But what an advantage his daughter starts with. When you talk about Clinton's daughter, people will say, well, already she has this advantage. Right? As Indira Gandhi had, daughter of Jawaharlal Nehru, as Rajiv Gandhi had, as Sanjay Gandhi had. Now here I am contrasting two cases. The difference between the father's horoscope, who built up a business and an industrial empire for himself after a modest beginning, and the son's who was naturally born with a silver spoon in his mouth, is revealed by the AMK of both. That idiom is there here also, silver spoon in the mouth? No? The father has his AMK, the moon in the Lagna, aspected from the 11th house, while the AMK aspects the 11th house and in turn is aspected by the sun, Venus and Mercury from the 8th house. Right? The sun has his AMK Mercury in the 5th house. With Sun and Venus, which combination is aspected by Jupiter from the 11th house. You see the difference between the father and the son? One struggles hard to build up, the other is born in the surrounding. And I gave predictions to both. Both used to come to me. And all the horoscopes I am giving, you can very freely quote anywhere as 100% authentic and cast according to Lahiri and taken from the most original source, their own families. Then illustration 5. A well-placed AMK but debilitated and badly aspected, particularly by his enemy, can do damage, as is clear in the horoscope given below. He had a very prosperous business at one stage in his life and would have risen higher if the dasha of his retrograde Mercury had not come at a crucial stage in 1975 when he asked me about his ruined business. His AMK, the debilitated sun, is aspected by retrograde Saturn. Clear? Sagittarius Dasha had started when he had put this question to me. Dhanu Dasha. This morning I talked about Dhanu Dasha. When the man is putting the question, I am seeing, well, this is happening. You see, the funny part is, one of the reasons why I always wanted to give up astrology was, in 80% of the time, you hardly have anything very soul lifting to tell to a person. Do you agree with me? Once in a while you can give them great predictions. They only become quotable predictions from our point of view. But the remaining 20% can once in a while give you a strange insight into a new dimension of astrology. That 20% somehow keeps alive my interest. Apart from that, I have been doing astrology because my Guruji instructed me to do astrology. And I given that photo of Swami Murkhanandji. He instructed. Otherwise, I would have given up astrology in 75. What is it that you have to tell people most of the time? Last year in New York, a very fine American woman wanted to have a reading. I did reading. Couldn't complete it. Somehow there was, I said, we'll come again. She said, she read some of my books. She said, I want to take these books and talk to some big distributor, publisher in New York. I said, don't do that. She said, why not? I said, I have a very unfortunate remark to make, which may hurt you people. The books we are producing from Bharati Vidya Bhavan, even one page will not have garbage. It is pure gold that we are giving. There are principles we are discussing, which we have tested. So our books can never become pop books. And in America, you are promoting only pop astrology. She said, I don't agree with you. I said, you go and try. I will give you 1 month's time. You will not succeed. This is not pop astrology. It is very serious astrology produced after years of research, tested in a laboratory called our classroom. So why do you think it can ever be promoted as pop astrology? 400 people read and test it. That is a greater contribution to astrology than producing sun signs and moon signs book and selling in millions. In India also I have seen those books. You read the whole thing from the beginning to the end. There is nothing which appeals to your intelligence. Not one sentence even. Well, she said, okay, what about my reading? I said, where do you live? I saw something strange. It was one of my strange experiences. She said, why are you asking that? I said, I am seeing something like big vehicles in your life. What is it? So what do you call that, living in that big car-like thing? Pardon? Huh? House trailer. No, she used some other word. Pardon? Not van. Some special word he used. Pardon?
Recreational vehicle.
The?
Recreational vehicle. RV.
No.
Mobile home.
No, anyway, forget it. She used some other word. She used some other word. I said, what is that? She said, everything is there inside. The kitchen, this, that.
That's a mobile home.
I said, mobile home, but some word she used.
Winnebago?
Oh, no. Or maybe it is a typical New York expression. I don't know. Anyway. She... Huh? No, it was not such a big word. It had only one word, not two. Anyway, Rakesh Sharma will tell you. Ask him. Then I told her, what do you do? Do you drive? She said, yes, I live in that. I drive and go to my office. I said, suppose you move into some apartment and don't drive cars for some period and go by taxi. She said, I can afford it, but why are you suggesting that? I said, look here, it doesn't appear to be a very safe period for you. Now place yourself in my position. Here is a dynamic American woman who wants to promote my books. And here is that Richard K. N. Rao from India who has to give her a bad prediction. You see, what a miserable moment it was for me. I am seeing an accident for her. And here is a lady who says, I want to promote your books. I said, thank you so much. But I'm not a pop writer. I will not be a pop writer. I'm uncompromising. That should have been in June. I came here in November. She wanted to come to attend that class. Which one was that? New Jersey? What was the place? I was teaching the class and she was in the hospital. And she sent a message to me. I'm sorry, Mr. Rao. If this had not happened, I would have wanted to know astrology. I wanted to study Vedic astrology. I couldn't go to see her and I don't know how she is. But you see the situation. You see, one of the reasons why you do not feel like doing astrology is this. 80% time you hardly have any good thing to tell a man. So counseling actually means seeing that brighter part and diverting attention there, so that the man his spirits get lifted, but that should not be based on untruth. It must be based on truth. So therefore, work harder, search that area of light.
Well, the other thing that I find that happens is, there's a lot of people that just have normal, stable lives, and there's a lot of nothing going on for long periods of time.
Yes.
There's no ups and downs.
Right.
And they want you to tell them something juicy, something's going to happen.
Yes,
It's just
correct.
not really,
You are right.
most people's lives many people's lives are that way.
Well, anyway, just 5 minutes diversion for you. Have you read George Bernard Shaw's 16 self-sketches? No. You heard of Bernard Shaw, right? George Bernard Shaw. Have you read his 16 self-sketches? No. 16 self-sketches. He never wrote his autobiography. He was past 90 when this book came out. And in the very first chapter, or whatever you call it, he gives the reasons why he never felt tempted to write his autobiography. He says, one morning a palmist came to me, looked at my palm and told me 95% things correctly. Immediately I went to my friend Morris, he was a poet. I asked him to show me his palm. He said, when have you picked up palmistry? He said, this morning. He showed the palm, he said, I told him 95% things correctly. What the palmist told me is what I could tell Morris also. 95% things are common in all our lives. Only 5% things can be uncommon. And within that 5%, if there are periods of extraordinary achievement, even there, in describing those achievements, most of these people wait for their contemporaries to die. So that there is no one to contradict the lies, the tissue of lies they will now produce in the shape of an autobiography. Right? Same is the story about an astrologer. 95% times when you see horoscopes, what do you find? Common. It is that 5% area only which distinguishes. And to come to that 5% area, Jaimini will many times help you. That is why I insist on Jaimini along with Parashara. Now the example number 5, well, his Dhanu Dasha was starting. He was one of the noblest persons you could ever think of meeting. But after the partition of the country, he came away from Dhaka to Calcutta. He never lost his nobility but lost all his wealth. And he was so super sensitive a gentleman. He came and asked me, will I be able to clear my debts before I die? He was such a gentleman that if you lent him $10,000 and he found that he was not able to repay it, you would have never demanded it back. He said, I don't want to lose the friendship with such a good man. Let this $10,000 be lost. Such a noble person. So he asked me, his Dhanu Dasha was starting. His AMK is debilitated. Sun, aspected by retrograde Saturn. Sagittarius Dasha had started when he had put the question to me. But he died before his son could salvage his ruined business. I'll go next to illustration 6. See another horoscope of an afflicted Amatya Karaka. Much worse was the case of a police officer who had been deprived of his promotions. I told him that he would have one promotion which he got with lot of difficulties. His AMK Jupiter is under worst affliction in the 6th house. Please remember, all I am discussing from the Lagna only. He got one ordinary long overdue promotion but died of food poisoning soon after. Then comes a question, how to predict the periods of rise and naturally also fall through Char Dasha. As I have said, for quick and sound predictions, use of both dashas simultaneously gives fast, snapshot, yet very reliable results. But there are a lot of details that should be worked out. What has been given is a shorter route to dependable predictions, not the total in-depth analysis which takes the work of many days. I am only introducing subject, a way of looking at it through illustrations. The last case is of a prediction given in 1991 to important doctor of Delhi who knows astrology and discussed his horoscope. My prediction to him was that he would get a higher post, very dignified, after September 1991. And he is now a member of the planning commission. Becoming a member of the planning commission in India is like becoming a member of a close advisory. Amatyakaraka. Is it clear? Which contains his Amatyakaraka. In 1991, when he asked me the question, he was running Libra Dasha, which is generally a very good Dasha, and from where the Atmakaraka and Amatyakaraka aspect the 10th house goes slightly deeply. Now go into the aspects, which is the Amatyakaraka here, Jupiter, and which is the Atmakaraka, Saturn, right? Saturn from Sthira Rashi, fixed sign, is aspecting the a Chara Rashi called Cancer Kark. Amatyakarak Jupiter from Sthira Rashi Scorpio is aspecting the 10th house from Tula, from Libra. He was passing through Libra Dasha. One of the generally dependable rules in giving predictions in Jaimini Dasha is what I hinted at here. Generally, the Libra periods will be periods of prosperity. Generally, in 70-80% cases, you will find that correct. Periods of prosperity are periods of comforts, positions. In this case, this man ran into the Libra Dasha, from where the 10th house receives the aspects of Amatyakaraka and Atmakaraka. Now come to another simple important principle. Tula happens to be the 5th house from his Lagna. 5th house in itself is the house of dignity. And from this house of dignity, the 10th house receives the aspect of Atmakaraka and Amatyakaraka. And I don't know, I'll have to see. And when, interestingly, in the Vinshotri Dasha, it was Venus Saturn or Saturn Venus. What was it? Pardon? The 5th Lord, 9th Lord. And both in their own houses. You see that? In the Aries sub-period, 2 benefics are in Kendras from it. So when he came into Aries sub-period, Moon and Venus are in 7th and the 10th house. And Jupiter aspects the 10th house. Jupiter is the Amatyakaraka. I am narrowing down the time. It is possible that it would happen in the Aries sub-period. Because in the Aries sub-period, I find Amatyakaraka aspecting the 10th house. Clear? In the Vinshotri Dasha, he was running Saturn, Venus, both Trikona lords in their own houses. But I must sound a warning that shortcut methods in Vedic astrology should be avoided. Those who want to go deeper must work diligently on a horoscope. With this, I think I can stop. Tomorrow I can take the remaining cases Tomorrow, what are you going to eat before coming? What are you going to eat before coming? Because tomorrow I am going to give you some bitter pills. So be prepared. I have not prepared you for that shock yet. So far I have talked about this thing. Now generally when some person comes to you, certain important pitfalls of astrology should be avoided, and those pitfalls can be avoided if you see the danger signals. As I told you, that New York dynamic American woman wanted to promote my books, I was seeing an accident for her. You see, it's a terrible situation. So there are ways of looking at it. Some hints I have given here, but I will illustrate and show you. Right, we can stop here today. Thank you. Hare Murari, He Nath Narayana Vasudeva, He Nath Narayana Vasudeva, He Nath Narayana Vasudeva, Sri Krishna Govinda, Hare Murari, He Nath Narayana Vasudeva. This is the fourth visit of mine to USA. Any difficulty here? It's not recording.
No, we're recording it so we can get
Pardon?
the questions.
Pardon?
So I want to put this over here so we can get the questions.
The questions you mean?
Yeah, the questions. So I can leave them
They get recorded.
on. Yes. Sorry.
Now please, you try to understand. This was the one occasion when I accommodated the wishes of Rakesh and 8 hours of teaching for so many days running. I told him in future the subject will of course continue to be advanced Jaimini. It will be only restricted to 3 days. It cannot be 6 days with me speaking for 8 hours. Then it will be 3 hours of speaking and 3 hours of discussion in which all of you will have to participate. It can't go on like this. And the condition I am laying down is each participant will have to contribute beforehand 3 horoscopes each, authentic horoscopes, send in advance with 3 horoscopes, which should be either of space engineer, mystics or artists. Space engineer, mystics or artists, and you must guarantee that the horoscope you are giving is 100% correct and with certain events of the life to enable me to verify them before coming here. Then I can come and show you the parameters, lay it down and make you participate. That will reduce the strain of speaking on me, speaking for 6 hours or 8 hours. It is disturbing me in many ways. A man who should talk minimum and should be taking mauna and doing sadhana. When you make me talk for 6 or 8 hours, I almost fritter away my energy, which I do not want to do. So 6 hours or 8 hours of talking I am not going to do in future at all. So I told, he said, Rakesh said, already you can announce that in the class and tell them. Oh. No, this is, I had worked on more than 500 horoscopes as I told you on this is from that book, Yogis. The feedback was in some cases excellent. So these mystics I said, in the case of mystics etc., because each human being is capable of having fine mystical experience. When does he have it? When does he have the experience of Kundalini? So therefore I am interested in the horoscopes of mystics. Space engineer. In India also we are getting, you also have. Now I'll start with this.
On space engineers, do you mean astronauts that are going to space?
No, not necessarily. People working in NASA, dealing with space. Not airlines. Airlines, they are not space engineers. They are just flying. Technical training. Pardon?
What about engineers who are building rockets?
Right? Yes, space engineers. Correct. This is in my book a picture of 1981 with Swami Murkhanandji. That is in the before I grew a beard. In 1980, I told you my Guruji had left. Had taken his samadhi. 1975, when I thought I should stop astrology altogether, I told you 80% of the people who come to you to ask questions have almost the same similar, boringly repetitive problems. And in 80% cases, you hardly have anything good to tell. You almost to squeeze something out and say. So the best counseling always has to be spiritual counseling. Very specific spiritual counseling. Nothing else really works. Recently, I was reading some paper, and a very serious paper, about the results of counseling you are doing in USA, somewhere in India, and you have to tell me whether that is correct or not. They said people in here in USA or even in Europe, when they went for counseling to a psychologist, to a psychoanalyst, They advised, got the advice, went back and never acted on the type of counseling that they received. In other words, they went back to their good old habits. For example, someone wanted to prevent the breakup of a marriage of someone. Both went to the psychologist. The psychologist advised. So for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 1 month or 2 months, they behaved normally, and it appeared that the damage had been repaired. But after 2 or 3 months, they went back to the old situation, and there was tension and the marriage broke down. So someone asked me, why did this happen? I said, perhaps if you had the horoscopes and you saw the Dasha Antardasha, it would be clear to you. Very scientific explanation will be astrological. A psychologist has done his best, concede. But if the Dasha and Antardasha is not favoring, what can the psychologist really do? So combining psychology with astrology will always be more effective. But such astrology must be very specific in guidance. It is only here that astrology can really become useful for the common man, and your counseling will have substance. That's what actually I am doing in India now. In India, when people come to me with specific problems, I look into the horoscope, I say, this is the specific one. So in 75, when I was giving up astrology, my Guruji prevented. 1980, my Guruji took his samadhi. I was in Delhi. I was giving up astrology. Right then, I met Murkhananji, whose photo I have given. Many of you here have been asking me a very good question. A very good question many of you have put to me. What is the specific mantra that one should do? And how do you decide that a particular mantra would be specific for a man on the basis of the horoscope? My answer is, I cannot answer this question because I have done no research. I have given instance how my Guruji would give a very specific mantra to anyone who went before him. You went before him and the mantra appeared before him. And I have given enough instances, including my sister immediately elder. She had a Krishna mantra which she got in dream. 4 years after she went to my Guruji, my Guruji gave her exactly the same mantra. That is one. And the only Mahatma I have known in my life, the only one, imagine I am coming from India, where we have all this advantage, the only Mahatma I have known who knew specific mantra for a specific problem was Swami Murkhanandji, whose photo I have shown. Here, this one. That is in 1981. My photo with him. Now, he knew more astrology than all the astrologers of the world put together. Incredible, but he could never be left alone all the time. He was crowded. I had discussed about him in that article in the other book, Astrology, Destiny and Wheel of Time. With lot of difficulty, I was able to procure his horoscope. he would never allow me to give up astrology. If I am here teaching astrology to you, it is only because of this Mahatma. Yesterday this Swamiji, that American Swamiji, I don't know his name, Sadatmanand, he told you something which is very important for you to remember. There is no such thing as a discovery. All the knowledge is already existing in the world. It is already present all the time in the world. When you are reaching higher stages of sadhana, the knowledge is getting revealed. That is all. Revelation. He during his sadhana came to know the secrets of so many chakras. Technically, he could tell you some extraordinary detail of a horoscope. But it was my misfortune, I never got him alone much, even sometimes for more than 2 or 3 minutes. But whenever I was alone with him, suddenly he would give me one hint. He would not allow me to give up astrology. I am here teaching before you only because of this Mahatma. And he used to use a word, यह विद्या लुप्त नहीं है, अस्त है. This knowledge has not disappeared, only there is a sunset over it. इसके उदय के कारण तुम बनोगे. You will be the agency, instrumentality chosen by nature or God for its reappearance. So therefore you are not going to give up astrology. World's largest institution of astrology will be built around you. Imagine, that is yogic vision. 81 he insisted. When I was thinking of giving up astrology, 87 our astrology institute started. So whatever I am doing is what he had told me through his yogic powers. I am referring to him because I have to tell you, some of you people have been very keenly interested in knowing, particularly 2 of you, about what are the specific mantras for specific problems. Except him, I do not know whether anyone else in the world really knew this. Very harsh judgment, isn't it? It's a very harsh thing to say what I am telling you. I also know theoretically. I have not tried and potentized. He had spent 50 years of his life only in testing each and every mantra and seeing how effective it was. I have given an instance in my book. A friend of mine was having serious difficulty from one of the most powerful Indians in Delhi. I took him to him. He gave him a particular mantra when we two were alone, and he said, do it in this manner. So there are certain do's and don'ts. Do it in this manner. After a week, that powerful man ran into such serious difficulties. Everything changed for my friend. Mantra is seen from the 5th house. Right? Fifth house is the house of mantra. Spiritual combinations in a horoscope. What are the promises? What have been the experiences? I definitely want that restrictive fifth clause for my next course. If you do not contribute 3 horoscopes in advance, you should not come to participate. A sense of participation has to be a two-way participation. I can't come all the way from India and not collect enough horoscopes from you and also apply the parameters. I must get it in advance in India. I am interested, I am going more into the mystical spiritual side of astrology. In USA, some of you have been in the spiritual mystical line very deeply in the last 30, 40, 50 or 60 years. You have been. It's my 4th visit, so I understand it better now. I have got horoscopes, I have talked to people privately. I find it is so. 3 of the participants here in this horoscope, in this classroom, have very active Kundalini. Rakesh Sharma was asking, he said, how do you know? Rakesh asked me. I said, you have not noticed, I have noticed that. So don't think you are not making good spiritual progress, you are. So I could see that. 3 I noticed, I said, but I didn't spend more time in noticing that. Because I have come to teach astrology not to notice the Kundalini of people. But it is there. Now,
so when you say mystics, could you also mean anyone who's connected strongly with spirituality?
Yes. Yes, I am taking the general word mystic because what happens is, a doctor opened a dead body. A medical student was working, he opened a dead body. When he saw the whole thing, he stopped. He said, I will not learn anything of medicine anymore. People asked him why. He said, I am a fool. Why should I study about this dead body? When I opened the dead body and saw the entire human anatomy, how brilliantly everything was connected with everyone, I thought I was wasting my time. I should try to understand who that great supreme engineer is. He becomes a mystic. Understand? Mystic. So, something happens to you in your life and suddenly you begin to see there's something much greater. Why am I getting tied to this material world? You're asking something?
I was just looking for clarification on artists. Do they need to be a professional artist or someone who is very much in the arts?
Who is very much an artist? Professional may be a professional, may not be a professional. Right? So one of these categories. So Rakesh and will clarify, yes.
That would also include musicians, sculptors.
Pardon?
That would also, artists would also include musicians, sculptors.
Oh yes, very good. Musicians, sculpture, see, last year I had a very fine experience. See, when I come to USA, the horoscopes I get are 500 times richer in variety than I can ever get in India. 500 times richer in variety. if I get advance and you send me the details, I will see a new meaning in certain sutra of Jaimini. You understand? I have to benefit and you will benefit from my teaching. Suddenly in India, when I am reading some sutra, something strikes me. Please don't forget I am passing through a super creative stage of my astrological career now. I can't come and keep on talking and teaching elementary lessons. Every day something new strikes me. This means this, this means this. So I don't want to come and talk so much and waste my energy. I want to teach for 2-3 hours, then make you participate, taking your own horoscopes you have collected from here, and now apply these parameters.
You want to give us an address where we can...
Pardon?
You want to give us a location or an address?
I will give my cards in any case, and Rakesh and Beth can also collect. Now, anyway, I'll bring it in the afternoon or in the evening. I'll distribute my cards. Some I have here. Yes, okay. I'll leave them here. Now, one technique first of all I am telling you. At a glance, when you see any horoscope, see which house or which planets are getting maximum energy. You see, for instance, in my horoscope, Tula Lagna, Mars, Venus, and Moon, all three are in my Lagna, associated with the 10th Lord. And I have Jupiter in my 10th house, which means my energy gets concentrated and karma and kendra from here, 4 planets. One Swagrihi, Moon in his own, Venus in his own house, Jupiter in the 10th house. Now see this horoscope. 5th Lord, who is the 5th Lord? Ninth Lord, 8th Lord, then Saturn, Moon,
7th Lord, 1st Lord.
together. If you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 planets are getting in the 5-11 axis. Right? Pardon? Pardon? How will it be done? Please remember, I am here talking to you only because of this great Mahatma. He would never allow me to give up astrology. And every time he would come to Delhi, the first question he would ask is Rao doing astrology or has he given it up? Now see, and whenever I had any friend who had a problem, I took him to him. I requested him to give him 1 or 2 minutes alone. And he gave you a mantra, told you how to do it, do's or don'ts. So your question and your question, which is the specific mantra, I am not competent to answer. But he was the only person I have known in my life who tested each and every mantra, just as they test a principle of astrology. Why he encouraged me was, he said, you are a scientist among astrologers, he used to tell me. You have the courage to take a sutra, test it and question it. He had the same type of approach. He said, let me see how effective this mantra is. And he would insist, this must be reflected in the horoscope. Where is your life's energy flowing? Now see the fifth house, Saturn, Moon, and the aspects of the Sun, Venus, Mercury on the fifth house. Then Jupiter aspecting Ketu in the 8th house. In the Navansha, Saturn, Moon, Mars.
Is Ketu actually in the 8th house? Because the Rahu Ketu actually is not.
Pardon?
There's an error in the first
Yeah,
chart.
there's an error in the first chart, but Ketu is definitely in the 8th house.
Rahu is in,
Is in the third,
second or third. Rahu's in Pisces and Ketu's in Simha.
which is not right.
Rahu is?
In Pisces.
Rahu
is Meena.
Meena, and Ketu is in.
Just a minute. Oh yes, no, Rahu is here.
Okay. Second.
Also is Jupiter Madhyakara or Atmakara? Depends on what chart.
Pardon?
On the South Indian chart, Jupiter shows a Madhyakara, and on a North Indian chart, shows Atmakara.
No, where?
Right hand side, not, yeah, you're right.
Sun is Atmakaraka.
No, look at the chart.
Sun is Atmakaraka.
Jupiter.
No, this will be Amatyakaraka. Okay. Who is the Atmakaraka in the sun? What is the Karakansha Lagna? Pardon? Pisces. What is the importance of Karakansha from a spiritual angle? I'll just touch upon it today. I work on this problem from Jaimini angle. I'll go much deeper. And when I say advanced Jaimini, if I come to do astrology in a place like this, in a temple, I have to develop a branch of spiritual astrology more for you. Under the American conditions of living, how best you can develop your material aspirations along with spiritual inclinations. Yesterday, Karveji was saying something in the afternoon. I want to tell them this. I told him in Hindi, you are not going to tell them this. He said, why? I said, this is not common to Americans. You can't look upon Americans as you look upon Indians. I have come here. He said, why do you say that? I said, please don't ask me here, I will explain to you later. You see, that flexibility has to be there. When I come to USA, I know a good deal about you because I had done readings. I know where an adjustment has to be made. When I am doing preaching to an Indian, my approach is different. When I am counseling in American, counseling is essentially preaching only. You have used a very grandiloquent word, counseling. Counseling is nothing except preaching. The preacher was doing the same work. It is preaching only and telling the man do this, that, etc. I said, no, don't prescribe this to Americans. A certain thing. So, Desh Kal Patra. Atmakarak going into Meena Navansha. Atmakarak going into Meena Navansha, therefore Pisces becoming the Karakansha Lagna. So the Karakansha Lagna is Meena.
Rahu is not there.
No, Rahu is actually in Kumbha. Now the essential difference between Karakansha here and taking this as Karakansha given in South Indian text, that is, put the whole thing and put in the Navansha. That is a very wrong, fallacious approach. Anyone who has Sun as the Atmakaraka will always have Sun in the Karakansha. Because Atmakaraka has the Karakansha. So anyone who has the Sun as the Atmakaraka will become a government servant then. Anyone who has the Venus as Atmakaraka will become a government servant. Anyone who has Jupiter as Atmakaraka will become a Vedantin, priest. So that is very rigid. Therefore, taking the Karakansha and putting it in the birth lagna, which North Indians do, is the only correct approach, so that you are not tying down. Please try to understand the logic. You are not narrowing down the scope of Karakansha, what all Karakansha is capable of doing. Now when you take this Karakansha, from here examine the 5th house. Jaimini aspects you take. Except Jupiter and Ketu. All other planets are concentrating on the 5th house. From the Parashara angle, the 5th house has already the concentration of 5 planets. In the Navansha, Moon, Saturn, Mars together, Man Jita to Jag Jita. Right? The moon is destroyed. So, I have given an instance in the other book, Astrology, Destiny, Wheel of Time. We were sitting in the house of the late Sita Ram Jaipuriya. He was an industrialist of northern India. He used to come and consult me. Whenever he had difficulty, he would come to consult me. And whenever he had no difficulty, he encouraged other astrologers. Because there are a lot of astrologers in Delhi who do lazy in work. Carry your horoscope, they know your weakness and exploit you and make you do the work for the industrialist. So I asked him, when you have employed so many astrologers, why do you come to me? I charge nothing. He said, when I have a problem, I come to you. And when I have some technical industrial problem, getting a license cleared, I make use of those people. So everyone has a weakness for an astrologer in India. And these industrial houses know how to exploit them. That is why in India I lay down a condition. Those who want to consult me will have to come to my house. I don't go to anyone's house. It's a very normal thing in India for an astrologer to go to their houses and do it. I said no. Now this Mahatma had told me 2 or 3 things. One of them was, first of all, keep on discovering truth and never accept rigidly classics.